write and pass today, did you say?
Yes, you remember, I don't know if you remember the lady at the last session, her name is Rita.
Yes.
That was saying that we were in the same study group.
Yes.
So she took the exam today and she passed.
Oh, well done.
Nice.
So she won't be here tonight.
Yes, she was actually supposed to be here today, but I didn't want us to, you know how we were here for like 4 hours for the last session. So if she comes and we start asking questions, we might make this session to, go longer than we planned. So I just told her, so what's going to happen is that she's good. I planned that she will come tomorrow by 7 p.m. So anyone that's interested, I'm going to send out an invitation to everybody that's going to be on this session this night. We are going to have like a Q&A session where she will come and share her experience today with all of us. So I don't want to take away, Toyin is a busy person, so let's just go right into it today. So I'm going to send out an invitation to everyone. So if you're interested and you want to ask her any questions, please log in. It's going to be by 7 p.m. so we can relax and talk to her. Okay, thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We have here today, okay, so I'll introduce myself. You all know me. My name is Chinyere Ubani, and after I passed my Cbap exam, I just decided that it would be good for me to share my experience and help other people. And from there, I decided to work with 3 people to help them in their. Can you all hear me? Help them.
Yes, we can.
Okay, help them in their journey to pass their exam. So that has been going on well, and I decided to invite other people who helped me to pass my exam to join, share their knowledge. And one of them is Toyin. Toyin really helped me a lot, and I can't talk about my success without talking about her. So, and that's why I decided to bring her in today to also share her knowledge and talk to all of us and help us with the last knowledge area. So she's the MD of 3T Consulting, and I want everybody to go on LinkedIn and follow her page.
Yeah, I'm already doing that.
Oh, thank you.
I was on a project with her and she's amazing. She helped me a lot during my exam. So I'm going to hand over to her now to introduce herself, and then we jump right into why we're here today. Okay, Toyin, over to you. And thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. Hello, everyone. My name is Toyin Ogunwale. I am a business analyst, project manager, quality coordinator. I work with the city of Hamilton, and by the side, I'm running 3T. So what 3T does is try to help clients with their business needs, which might come in form of a solution or an improvement to whatever systems that they have in place. So we have a couple of projects that we work on, and then we have other initiatives that we also build ourselves. So part of the experience Jerry was talking about was when we were trying to put all the requirements together for the eCourseify. So eCourseify is still work in progress. Hopefully soon it will be launched, and then you all can benefit from it. So maybe after you have passed your exam, you can come on eCourseify and be a facilitator to help other people. So that's the whole idea. So thank you so much, Cherry, for putting this together and for having me. So let's just go right into it.
Okay, I need to make you a co-host here so you can share your screen. Okay? Yes, so you're a co-host.
Okay. So I'm sure you guys have all, dealt with the other knowledge areas, before jumping at the solution evaluation. I want to believe so. So I just want to test your knowledge. We have a short quiz, it's just 10 questions. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll read out the questions, put the answers in the chat box, and then we'll go right in and explain, talk about what the right answers should be. And then we'll go deep into the presentation. Okay, so the first question is, you are investigating how a solution affects a particular stakeholder group after that solution has been deployed. So what solution evaluation task are you performing? Just put the answer in the question in the chat box. Chinere, you can help me moderate
Yes,
that.
I'll help you monitor.
So this one is saying you are investigating how a solution affects a particular stakeholder group after the solution has been deployed. So what solution evaluation task are you performing?
So put your answers in the chat. So we have A, 2 people, C. Okay, B, A. So 2 people A, 2 people C, and 1 person B.
Okay, so let's just.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Just
so the answer is A actually. So what this means is you are investigating, sorry for the typo there, you are investigating how a solution affects a stakeholder group or a stakeholder assessment. So it is an element of assessing enterprise limitation, because you are talking about a stakeholder group. Stakeholder group might be the business analyst, might be the end users, it might be the subject matter expert, it might be the sponsor. So that particular solution, after it has been deployed, it is now as in you are now trying to investigate how that solution is affecting them. So it means you are doing an enterprise, you are trying to assess the enterprise limitation for that particular task. Is that clear?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's really not about the solution. It's not like you're trying to check, a particular component on the solution. So where this, it can actually be so confusing, right? So because you are investigating how that particular solution is affecting the group of people. It might be the operational unit, it might be the end users, it might be the customer as well. So you're just trying to assess how, the overall enterprise is accepting that particular solution. So what you are doing in this particular task is you're assessing the enterprise limitation. Okay, so let's move to the next one. So which stakeholder approves the potential value of a solution? So you would have done this in RAD.
We have D.
Okay.
Most people agree that the answer is D.
Okay, so yes, you're right. So the answer is D. So the project sponsor is responsible for approving the potential value of a solution. So when you do your cost benefit analysis, right, the sponsor has a vision of that particular solution. He or she knows what he wants to, achieve from that particular solution. So an example is the e-coursifier when we were trying to analyze the requirements. So I knew what we wanted to do, but at the end of the day, who should be the one to approve that particular solution or approve the potential value of that solution? Is a sponsor. So it's not the business analyst. Business analyst is just there to assist the sponsor, to understand how the requirements will be, elicited, will be analyzed, do the mock-ups, the designs and all of that. Okay, so the next one. When should you begin to allocate requirements to the solution component? Uh-oh, I messed up.
Yeah.
But it's fine. So when should you begin to allocate requirement to the solution component that will implement those requirements during a project? So the first one says when, okay, so the answer is already here. So the answer is when the solution approach is determined. So to explain that, so it means solution allocation typically begins early in the project lifecycle, as soon as the solution approach can be determined. Okay, and that continues to be performed until all valid requirements are allocated, typically through design and construction of the solution. I hope that is clear. Anyway, we are still going to explain what solution evaluation knowledge area is all about, so it will become clearer. So the fourth one is what is the best recommendation to make when the value of a change from a current state is low relative to the effort required to make that change? A, avoid waste. B, reduce complexity. D, retire solution. And then D, do nothing. So the question says, what is the best recommendation to make when the value of a change from a current state is low relative to the effort required to make that change?
I have 3 people saying that is D.
Okay.
The others, please, we need your answers too. Okay, D.
Okay. Yeah, so, and that's right. So you do nothing because you've already tried to establish, the value compared to the effort. So if the value is low, so why should you bother yourself, right? You don't need to put in so much energy and try to work it out when it's not beneficial to anybody. So you do nothing. So that is the recommendation to make when the value of a change from a current state is low relative to the effort required to make that change. So as a business analyst, so they see you as a champion, as a magician, right? So your job is you need to analyze everything that needs to be analyzed, and then you have the right to also recommend and give an advice to the sponsor and then to the stakeholder. So in this case, you have recommended that, see, I've done the analysis, I've checked the value, I've checked, the costs. It really doesn't make sense for us to go ahead with this project. So I think it's rather do nothing, right? So, and with your analysis, you have all your facts, all your findings and everything, to back it up. So you have the right to recommend what you think based on your analysis. So it's more of a fact-driven, decision-making process. So you need to have your evidence to back that up. Okay. So number 5, what is the best reason for involving a business analyst in solution evaluation task? A, they work closest with the project manager and the project team. B, they have built relationship with all lay project stakeholders. C, they bring technical skills. Yeah, sorry. They bring technical skills to the solution assessment process. And then D, they are most knowledgeable about the business environment. So what's your answer, Jerry?
We have D.
Okay, so let's move in. So the answer is D. Like I explained in the previous question, so a business analyst knows the business environment. So one thing that is very, very important as a business analyst, so you cannot just be a business analyst and you want to work in any organization. No, you need to have your niche, your domain. Which domain do you belong to? So for instance, if you have a CFA, right, you can as well be a business analyst and also be a CFA, which means you have the knowledge of that domain, of that financial domain, and then you can be a subject matter expert, in that field. So you cannot be a business analyst, you don't have experience in construction and you just want to go and, apply to a construction role. So you need to understand. So your past experience would play, a very good, role here. Right? So a business analyst knows the business environment and can assess how each proposed solution would affect the environment. So a business analyst are also responsible for ensuring that the stakeholder fully understands the solution requirements and that implementation decisions align with those requirements. So I hope this is very, very clear. So I used to work in a bank. Even though when I came to Canada, I worked briefly with Scotiabank, but I couldn't get the BA role. My previous role was totally very, very related to business analyst, even though it wasn't the title that we use back, from my home country. But maybe I would have been a better fit, if I work as a business analyst in the financial domain where I was coming from. But right now I work with the government, but it took me a while to catch up, with the processes. So I'm not saying you cannot catch up, but it is very, very important that as a business analyst, you understand the business domain that you want to function in. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, number 6. According to the BACCM, a business analyst may recommend a change either to a solution or to the dash to realize the potential value of a solution.
So, waiting. We should be 10 that are involved here. So let's just give them a few more minutes, okay? More answers. One person chose B.
Okay.
Most of the answers I have here say A.
A, okay. Yeah, they're right. The answer is A. So according to the business analysis core concept model, a business analyst may recommend a change to either a solution or to the enterprise to realize the potential value of a solution. I think that's pretty much straightforward. Okay, so number 7, which task has solution performance measures as an input? A, measure solution performance. B, analyze performance measures. C, assess enterprise limitations. And D, assess solution limitations. Remember your ITTOs, inputs, your tools and techniques, and then the outputs.
Yes, more answers. I have 1, 2, 3. Only 4 people have answered question 5. Okay.
So what option do we have?
Most people are going with 3 people said B, then 1 person A, then we have a C.
Okay, so the answer is actually B. So input for the analyzed performance measure task include the solution performance measures and the potential value. Okay, so additional guidelines and tools used as input are the change strategy, the future state description, the risk analysis results, the solution scope, and deployed solution, any identified defect, and the business requirements. So this is pretty much clear. So once we get into the knowledge area, you would also get to understand it better, okay? So number 8, we have 2 more to go after this. So to evaluate solution performance, the solution must exist in some form and be dash.
Okay.
So what options do we have?
The answers are still coming in. More answers, please. I think we have Danielle. Yes, A. 1 person answered C. A. Most people answered A.
Okay, yeah, the answer is A. So for you to evaluate a solution performance, it must exist and it must be in use in some form, as in some form it must be in use. So we'll get deep into it, okay? Number 9, so what technique might assist you in measuring solution performance? A, business cases. B, vendor assessments. C, decision analysis. D, metrics and KPIs.
D.
Yeah, that's correct. So the answer is D. So the BABOK guide recommends using metrics and KPIs when measuring solution performance. Okay. So last question, solution evaluation tasks can be performed on solutions in different stages of development. So you want to evaluate a solution component that is part of a limited limitation that is not fully released. What type of solution are you working on? A, prototype. B, pilot. C, proof of concept. D, operation. So we have different stages of development. If you are familiar with the SD software development lifecycle, then someone is trying to come in. Okay, so what options do we have?
B, mostly B.
B.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody here answered B.
Yes, they are right. So pilot, the answer is B. Solution evaluation tasks can be performed on solution in different stages of development. A pilot or a beta release is a name given to solution components that is part of a solution limitation that is not fully released. Okay, good job, everyone. So now let's move to the real presentation.
Okay, so thank you, Tony, for this session, brainstorming session. Before we jump right into it, I would like for you to share maybe like a few tips, because some people might not stay till the end.
Okay.
This would have been better at the end, but can you just give the people that have, because there are some people here, they have exam this coming week. Do you
Okay.
have any tips for them? Maybe how you were able to tackle the exam on the exam day? Anything that you want to share with them?
Okay, so for me, I don't like multiple choice question, and it's really not my thing. I get confused easily when I see multiple choice questions. So I did the exam one time and I didn't pass it. Then I tried it again, then I passed it. So the second time, what I did was I ensured I tackled a lot of past questions, and then I went back to BABOK. Okay, I've given my diagram. So what I did was to get a clean paper, you know how those input output. So I drew them out in different sheet of papers. So each knowledge area I had I did like a mind mapping, to connect, I have the knowledge area, then I connected all the tasks, then I connected all the input and output. So I was able to have it in a visual form, and it was just staring in my face. So I think that's part of the logic that really helped me out, when I was trying to do it the second time. So that way it made me cover the entire BBOK, and then I did a lot of past question as well. So I don't know if that's a good tip.
So I like that you said this, because I also have some people here who this is their second attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to know that it's not the end of the world.
No, it's not.
There's so many people, and it doesn't mean that you're not smart, because what this does to you sometimes is that it affects your confidence when you fail it the first time. So it's good to know that it's not the end of the world. Once
No,
you
it's not. It's not. So what I tell people,
try again, and just put in.
yeah. But seriously, if not for Canada and the way they put so much emphasis on certification, for me, I think the skills and the competencies are more, should be what people should focus more on, right? Try to look for some volunteering activities, some, just to get some work experience, and, to really understand the flow of how you start a project and you end a project. Before you know it, everything will just start ticking, and, you start getting to understand this business analysis of a thing, you understand. But for the exam, which is good, it's a added advantage, because if I'm a recruiter now and I see a lot of people applying for a particular position, I would rather pick people with a certification. I would value the people with the certification more than the people without the certification. So it works in both ways. But at the same time, it's good to have the certification, and it's also good to build the skills and the competencies as well. So I'm not, this is a 95-page document, so I'm just going to breeze, through it. So we might not spend up to 4 hours like Jerry said, but I just want you to understand the most important part of it. So when we talk about solution evaluation might actually be the first task that you would perform as a business analyst. I'm sure when I mentioned that during the session I had with Jerry, they will probably be wondering, what do you mean? Which is the truth, because like when we're going through that past question, the solution must be in some form. Okay, let me just give you another example, right? If you are applying as a business analyst to RBC, to Scotiabank, do you think they are taking you in to build a new solution? No. You are probably joining because they need an enhancement on the solution that they currently have. So part of the task you need to first of all perform is to assess that solution that they have in place. So if you look at the first knowledge area, the business analysis, planning and monitoring, the first task talks about, if you look at the inputs, you have the needs and the implemented solution. If you can recall that, this is what they are actually talking about. Like, you have assessed that solution and you have identified that there are some limitations on that solution. So solution evaluation can be the first task, and it can also be the, well, definitely it will also come at the end as well. So you can do it first, to really understand what limitations the enterprise has, or the limitation the organization has. So by doing so, you need to analyze that solution, get your metrics and your KPIs to fully understand. Okay, so 3T just got a project few days ago. So we're trying to redesign a blog for a client. Let me show you, let me try to share my screen just to show you that. That's to show you what the current state is. So you need to first of all understand the current state. What are the limitations on that particular current state? Okay, so you have this blog and the customer saw it and I was like, oh, this is really not good enough. I can't really push this. Someone built this solution for her and she wants us to make an enhancement to this. So before we even get deeper into it, so we first of all understood our needs, which is part of the input for the business analysis, planning and monitoring. And then the second bit of it is now the metrics, the assessment of the solution. Before you now start talking about your requirement gathering, your RAD, your prototypes, and the, requirement life cycles and all of that. So we first of all understood what she wanted. And then we came to this blog to really understand what the limitations are, how our content are being, are arranged, the pictures and all of that. So we did some metrics to fully understand what the issues are. So back to my point, right? An organization that wants to take you on as a business analyst, it's not like they are taking you because they have a new idea that they want to implement. No, they are taking you in because they want to enhance their current solution. They have their banking mobile application, they have their website. So maybe there are some limitations, there are some things, or they found out that some of their competitors are, deployed a new component on their mobile apps and they want to adopt the same thing. You understand? So that is, sorry, I'm trying to share the screen back.
So while we are waiting for her to share the screen back, if during a presentation you have any question, please put it in the chat area and I'll read it out to her. So I'll be monitoring the chat group so that anybody that has any question, I'll capture it and then read it out. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So that's it. So let's just move on. So this is a presentation developed by IBA chapter in Vancouver, right, Cherry?
Yes. Vancouver.
Okay, so it's just the abridged version, so not everything, all this agenda, no introduction. Okay, so introduction for the solution evaluation. So the task consists of, sorry, I didn't really go through this so much. And okay, so let me just use this this beautiful shape here. So you can see all the knowledge areas and you can see how they are all interconnected, right? So solution evaluation is right at the bottom. Even though it's right at the bottom, it's still connected to the all other knowledge areas. Like I said, you need to have some solution must be in place and you must have analyzed that solution, to be sure that you need an enhancement on that solution. Right, so you can see the business analysis, planning and monitoring, the strategy analysis, the RAD, the life cycle, and the elicitation and collaboration. And I'm sure you guys have, studied and you've really understood what the other, knowledge areas, are all about. So here is the input, the task, and the output for the solution evaluation. So the first one is the measure solution performance. Like I said, so how do you measure the performance of that solution? Right, so that is what that particular task is talking about. And then the second one is after you have measured that particular solution, after you have measured the performance of that solution, then you do an analysis of that. So what does analysis mean? You just need to understand, what are the variables, what is the differentials, what are the actuals, the targets, as in, do a deep analysis to be sure that, okay, there is actually a need, to move forward or to make a change to that particular solution. And then the third one is now to assess the solution limitation. So you remember the first one, you have measured that performance, you have analyzed that performance. The third one is now you want to assess the limitation. Even though you have gotten all your metrics, you've got the figures. Now, what are the limitations? How come our customer cannot be able to do this on this particular platform, right? Like the blog I just showed you now. So for instance, the limitation might be, okay, how come the readers cannot comment on that on a post? Or why can't they click like on that post? So that's an example of a limitation that the solution might have. And then the third one will now be the assess enterprise limitation. So what this means is you are assessing how the solution affects the larger group, affect the entire organization. It might be relating to culture change, right? Some people might just not find it, they might not be open to change, to technology change. They might prefer to, go by their status quo, right? For example, like the blog I showed you now. So part of the stakeholder will be the readers, the audience, right? So why are they not going to the blog to read it? What could be the problem, right? Maybe they are just used to the traditional newspaper, that they find on the streets, to catch up with the current situation of the country, right? And then the last one is now, how do you recommend an action to increase the value of that solution? So like I said, after we had, done the analysis on the blog, we had, understood, we have gathered requirements both from the readers and then even from the sponsor herself, right? So we now decided to recommend, okay, I think it's better to just let go of that blog. We'll redesign a brand new blog for you that will be more, that will be more, attractive to your readers. I know everybody can, more like a win-win for everybody. So that's it. So the input, so I think we'll get into it. So introduction. Also, you understand this BACCM, which is a business analysis core concept model. So what this basically means is it's a framework. So every initiative that you have, every idea, every solution, anything that relates to you getting a business analyst to work on your solution, they must, try to work by this framework, by this BACCM, business analysis core concept model. So it's really not about the knowledge area. So knowledge area, you might use some, you might not use some, right? It is not cast in stone. It is not all encompassing. You can even generate your own idea on something that you think, is better. Like, is it normative technique? I'm not sure I've encountered that in business analysis, but there are so many techniques, more than the 50 that the BABOK has actually mentioned, that you can use. Fist to five is another technique, when you're having a workshop and you just want people to agree, like almost immediately, you can just tell them, okay, one finger, two finger, and all of that. So there are so many techniques, but BABOK has actually set out this framework that there is no any solution, be it an improvement, be it a brand new solution or a new initiative or whatever it is, you should try as much as possible to abide by this framework. So what this framework means is you have the change, you have the need, you have the solution, you have your stakeholders, you have the value, and then you have the content. So what it means is that, is it a change? So it means you need to recommend a change, to either a solution. So this is now talking about this particular knowledge area. So all this framework is applicable to each of the knowledge areas, but in general as well, you can also apply it to your initiative or to your project, right? So first of all, you need to understand, is it a change? Okay, so if it's a change, what needs to be done? Is it a need? You need to evaluate. How do you evaluate the needs or analyze the needs or identify the needs, right? Solution, you need to assess the performance of the solution, examine if it is delivering the potential value, if only determined why. And then who are your stakeholders? You need to elicit more information from your stakeholders. You need to understand the value that you are trying to, derive from that particular, task or knowledge or whatever it is that you are doing. And then your context, that is the business environment, right? So you need to consider the context in determining the solution performance, measures, and the limitations within the context that they may prohibit value, from being realized. So context might be, you might have some hindrances from the regulatory bodies. You might have some hindrances even from your top executives, right? So they might not even buy into the idea that you are trying to propose. So this is a framework that the BABOK has, put together for us to, work with. Is there any question before I move on?
No, unless anybody wants to ask any question.
Okay, so let's move to the first task. So you measure the solution performance. So what this means is you need to define your performance measures. How do you define your performance measures? Right? Evaluate the effectiveness of a solution in relation to the value that it brings. So for example, how do you really measure the performance of your solution? Can someone help me? Let's make it interactive. Let's use the blog as an example that I just showed you. How do you measure the performance of that solution?
Like okay. Are they selling stuff? Number of people that buy things on it, I guess.
No, it's just a news platform where people can go for information, breaking news.
That means number of people that come to view the blog, I guess.
Okay, yeah, we can use that. Any other one?
How intuitive the platform is.
Okay. Another one?
How well it's meeting the business objectives.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so that says it all. So we need to measure solution performance. So before you even develop a solution, you must have your success criteria. What are your success criteria? How many visitors do you want to see on your blog per week or per month? Right? How many comments do you want each of your posts to have? How can you drive traffic on that platform? So if you are not meeting those numbers, then you probably would say, oh, maybe there is a need to do something else or to do something better. Right? If, for instance, if she starts to sell something on it, she can also capture something like, okay, how many sales is she making on that particular platform? So description. So you want to say something?
Yes, I have someone dropped a comment
Okay.
in response to your question saying, how clear are the photos?
Yeah, that's another.
Response time for page request.
Yeah.
How fast can you scroll? Like if you're scrolling through the...
Yeah, so that's the kind of measurement, that you use to assess your performance and the performance of your solution. So description again, it determines the value of a newly deployed or existing solution. Measurement depends on the solution, context, and how the organization defines value. Solutions are evaluated based upon the existence, that's built-in performance measures, not exists. So BA works with stakeholders to determine and collect measures that will best reflect the performance of a solution. So the next one is performance may be assessed through the following. So you have your KPI. So what is the KPI? The key performance indicator. Its key performance indicator is actually different from metric, but it's kind of the same. So key performance indicator aligns with your strategic goals, right? So you can have metrics. Metrics can, okay, yeah, how many people are logging in? How long do they stay on the blog? Do they just come in and do they, leave? How does my blog reflect on Google search, as in does it really pop up, so those are just the basic KPIs, the metrics. So for the KPI, it must really align with your strategic goal. So for instance, she wants to ensure that she can get about 30,000 people every month, maybe 30,000, capture 30,000 new readers every month on her blog. So what are the things that she needs to do to ensure that she meets that particular goal? So she needs to monitor that KPI closely. So if she's not monitoring her target against the actual, then maybe she needs to do some improvement. The improvement might actually not be, like I said, for business analysts, it might actually not be about building an IT solution. It works with process improvement. So that is where you have the business analysis perspective. So you have the perspective on business improvement, business process improvement. You have perspective on agile. You have perspective on IT technology. So as a BA, everything really doesn't lie with building an IT solution. Okay, so it might just be a process, maybe in your manufacturing industry, maybe the time lag, lag that, it takes for production, to move to the next stage and all of that, and then you're trying to improve. So those are the measurements that you need to measure. How long does it take to move from spot A to spot B? What needs to be done? Should we build an SOP, a standard operating procedure? Is it that the employees are not really getting they don't understand what they're supposed to do? Is it that we are not doing enough training? So those are the kind of measurement that you can also, perform, relating to the context of the solution of the initiative that you're working on. Okay, so
Okay.
let's.
Cool.
You want to ask a question? Go ahead.
And Judy, is it true that metrics are solution specific while a KPI is enterprise-wide?
Yeah, I think a bit related. So where I work, right? So part of my task is to measure KPIs for the division, for the department where I work, right? So I have a lot of metrics that people put on the platform that we use, but there are some that are very strategic, that the general manager needs to capture and to monitor on a day-to-day basis. So those are the KPIs. Those are the ones that are more strategic to, they are more strategic to the overall organization. So KPIs, you can't have, for instance, if the goal of your organization is, let me use a bank for an example, like a Scotia Bank. We want to be the #1 bank in Canada or in North America. So what kind of metrics do you think that bank should be capturing? So whatever metric that they're capturing that should focus on that particular goal statements are KPIs, because they are aligning to the strategic goal. You can have other KPIs. You can have the number of employees, how long it takes them, to finish a particular process. But those particular metrics are not aligned with the overall goal. So the overall goal is we want to be the #1 customer, the #1 bank in North America. So part of what they need to do is maybe talk about their costs. If their costs is low, then maybe they'll have more customers, right? And customers will trust them more. I'm talking about low fees. So those are the KPIs. Those are the strategic goals. I mean, the strategic metrics that the organization needs to monitor closely. So did I answer your question, Judy?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
That's you're thinking along the same way that I am, that a KPI can be something like, well, you're talking of banks. So Scotiabank has a very large international division. And so they want to have very competitive exchange rates.
Exactly, yeah.
So a metric might be in their, I worked for Scotiabank as well, and part of what their forecasting system does is provide a trend in exchange rates.
Okay.
So that's not specifically a KPI, but that's a metric.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. So KPI must be strategic. It's a high level metric. It's a high level goal. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello?
I think.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you all hear her?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I hear you now.
Okay, so KPI is very, very strategic. So it must really align with the overall strategic goal. Metric, anybody can measure metric. Each of the division can measure their own metric, how they want to meet that goal, but they are not necessarily KPIs. So KPI, a metric becomes a KPI when it's aligning to the overall strategic goal.
So let me ask, you don't use a KPI. So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that your metric is at a lower level than your KPI?
Yes. But even though they are measurable, you can use them for whatever decision you want to, make. But when you're talking about KPI, that is why they say key. The key is very, very is the buzzword here. Key performance indicator. So that is the high level metric that an organization needs to monitor closely. So you can have a dashboard for your KPI, you know, just to be measuring the trends, you know, comparing the target against the actuals. But for metrics, yeah, if I'm a manager of a particular division, of course, I need to have my own metrics, you know, that I need to use to monitor my employees, right? And then I also need to, maybe part of my metric now becomes a KPI for the general manager. You understand? So the general manager might decide to now start measuring one of my metrics. So it becomes a KPI for him because it's something that he wants to monitor closely. He wants to be able to, you know, to report on a regular basis.
Yeah, can I contribute to the topic?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let's take a metric is what drives the KPI.
Yeah.
The few numbers you use to track the performance and the progress. For example, if we say we have a target of 50 what? 50 production units. So the KPI is the production units, but the number that is 50 is the metric. It is that we use to bring out the beauty of being able to say anything about the KPI. So the KPI is used as a measure of the performance and the success. Nothing is ever good or bad unless you compare it to something else. However, you need a figure. You need an element to be able to say whether this is good or this is bad. So that element is the metric. But the overall trending grouping that you use in checking it out is the KPI. I used to work in a place where we develop the KPI, and then we need to ask ourselves, what metric are we going to use to monitor the performance of that KPI? So that's just it. And so metrics can be anything. It's just a figure that talks. Maybe some people will say their metric for the same KPI. Some people will say their metric is 20. Once they get 20, they are okay. Some other people will say our metric is 30 for the same KPI. So it's a measure of, we need to understand that as it may be. I hope I've not confused everybody.
Thank you, Bas. Thank you. So
That's also good. So that's where I think we also have the baselines, you know, also comes in, you know, when you set a target for your KPI or for your metric or whichever ways, you need to first of all determine what you're trying to measure against, right? What is our target? What is our focus? What are we trying to achieve? How are we, you know, on a daily basis or a monthly basis, you know, trying to meet up to that particular target? Like I said, Babs, you know, also try to explain, you know, in a very good way, which I think we have not been able to confuse anybody. But if you have any other question, please, you know, draw me back as well. So let's just move on. Okay, so here we have the measure solution performance. The input to that is we have the implemented solution, like I said, external, right? And then you have the business objectives. So the business objectives and then the implemented solution. So those are the input for this particular task. And then the guidelines and the tools, you have the change strategy, you have the future state description, you have the requirements, you have the requirement that are validated, and then you have the solution scope. And then right under it, you have your output, which is the solution performance measures, right? So you remember the task says you should measure the solution performance. And then you need some elements, which are the inputs, you know, for you to be able to measure that solution performance. And then the output is now the solution performance measures. Okay, so we have other tasks that use that particular output, which is the analyze current state, and then we have the analyze performance measures. You remember when I said that, you know, when you want to start a project, right? Even though the first knowledge area says business analysis, planning, and monitoring, that is it. In most cases, that is not how it is. A lot of time, this is what you need to do first. Do you understand? And then you can see the inputs that you need to even perform this particular solution. So you need that solution. It must be in use in some form. And then you need the business objective to be able to measure the performance of that solution. And then if you see on the tasks that are also using this particular output, we have the analyze current state, which comes under the strategy analysis. right? And then you have the analyze solution performance. You can see how the thing is just intertwined, you know. You just need to understand the flow, right? So when you want to do your exam, just don't think about, no, you need to do the analysis, you need to plan and monitor first. No, it depends. You might have a checklist of the things you need to do, but first of all, you need to understand what you are even trying to do first before you now go so deep into the project itself. Okay, so let's move on. So here we have, we are still talking about the input, right? So business objectives. So one, it says measurable results that the enterprise wants to achieve. Two, we have, it provides a benchmark against which solution performance can be assessed. So like I said, I'll go back to the example of Scotiabank. Scotiabank wants to be the #1 bank in North America. They have hired you as a business analyst, right? So you need to assess the solution. You need to assess the mobile app that they have. So what is the business objective? So you need to understand the measurable results that the enterprise wants to achieve. What is the goal? The goal is, okay, we want to be the #1 bank in North America. And then two, you need to be able to benchmark against which solution performance can be assessed. Now we have RBC mobile app. RBC is able to give me my credit score, and yes, Scotiabank is not able to do that. Maybe that is the initiative that they need to improve upon. So you have your business objective. And then implemented solution. So you have a solution or a component of a solution that exists in some form, right? Operating solution, prototype, pilot, or better. You understand? So those are the input that you need before you now talk about measuring your solution performance.
Okay. See, we have a question here.
Okay.
AK, when they say implemented solution external, what does that mean?
Exactly what I just explained. So the solution must be in some form.
We can't hear
breaking.
You. Yes.
Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so implemented solution external. So why they said external is it's external to the initiative that you're trying to develop upon, right? Because it is what you're trying to assess at this point. Do you understand? So the solution must be in some form. It must be in use. It might be in form of an operating solution that you currently use. You might have it as a prototype, or you have it as a pilot. So that is exactly what it means. So you will need to measure the performance of the solution that you have. You need the business objective, and then you need the implemented solution. So implemented solution means you have something that is already working, that is available, that exists. That is just in some cases. So sometimes it might be a brand new initiative, which means you don't have an existing solution that you need to measure. You remember, Chinyere, when we're doing the eCourseify project, we didn't have an existing solution to measure because it was a brand new idea. But if it relates to an existing solution, you need to first of all measure the performance of that solution. And like I also said, an organization that wants to employ you would have done some analysis before they even think of building a brand new solution. But in most cases, they usually bring it up because they need to enhance what currently exists. That's why I kept using Scotiabank and their mobile application as an example. So if they need to improve, add the new component to the solution to their mobile app, and then that is where it comes in as an implemented solution external, because you need to assess that particular solution to be able to analyze where the improvement should be. Okay.
So I think where he needs clarification is the external, internal.
Yeah.
Because he's asking, so is there a solution that is internal?
At this point, yes. Once the solution is implemented, it becomes internal. Do you understand?
Okay. Do you understand?
Not really. So that's a question I've asked myself when I saw it in the BABOK, that it says implemented solution external. So if there's external, there has to be internal. But it says in the BABOK that a solution must be in use and must have been it has been constructed and must be used in a particular form, right?
Yeah.
You're saying that one that is already operational, is that what you're calling internal?
No. So internal will probably be, for instance, if you are building a new initiative, right? And then you have gone through each of the knowledge area, each of the tasks and all of that. And then you get to the prototype, under requirement analysis and design definition. That comes in form of an internal prototype. You understand? So this particular knowledge area comes in two forms. You can either come at the beginning of your project or it comes at the end, depending on the kind of initiative you're working on. So if you're working on an existing solution, so that is why it is the implemented solution is external. But if you are working on a new initiative, then it becomes part of the project itself. So right now it is still external because you're still trying to analyze and assess, the need for it. So what if, you get to the point where you need to recommend and there is actually no need to even improve that particular solution and you want that solution to be retired and then you now want to start a brand new initiative. You understand? I think maybe when we move forward, you get to, we can get deeper in it.
Okay.
Hi, can I contribute something?
Yes, please.
All right, so basically there are a few inputs in the BABOK that are external. When they say it's external, what I understand by it from my study, it means that it's not part of the process you are doing. It came out, so all implemented solutions, basically they are external. There's no really any point where it becomes internal. There is no, okay, let's take from the BAPM. You have the needs, the business needs are external. It's an external input because it's not something you derive. It's not an outcome from any of the processes or any of the tasks.
Exactly, yeah.
Gets as an output from any task during the process of your business analysis activity, it's not termed external. Anything you get that is not part of the activities you performed is termed as external. So we have the business needs, that's external. We have the implemented solution is external. Yeah. We have there's one other one that is external. I think it has to do with, there's about 4 of them that are external in the whole of the BABOK. They are external because they are not part of the things you get as outputs. But the other one, for example, you mentioned the implemented solution and what's the second input? The other second input is part of something you derive.
That's business objectives.
So it's part of something, it's an output from strategy analysis, define future state. One of the outputs is business objectives. So it's not going to be termed external because it's part of something you derive in the process of your activity. Thank you.
I think that's clear enough, right? Hello?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So here we have defined solution.
I have just one short comment.
Okay.
About inputs. There is a BABOK reference to what external and internal means with inputs, and it's on page 6 if anybody needs that reference.
Okay.
And it clearly explains what they mean in the BABOK.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is define solution performance measure. So what you do is you determine if current measure exists or if method for capturing them are in place. And then the next one is you also ensure that the existing solution, the existing performance measures are accurate, relevant, and then you elicit any additional performance measures identified by stakeholders. And then you have the business goals, objectives, and the business processes are common sources of measures. And then the last one is performance measures may be influenced or imposed by third party, such as solution vendor, government bodies, or any regulatory organization. So these are the elements. So do you need any clarification on this? Can I move on? So we are still talking about solution measure. So you are still trying to measure the solution performance. So part of the element for that is you need to determine if current measure. So you need to be sure that, you need to check the repository, the lesson line. the previous project team that worked on that solution, did they document anything down? Do they have any success criteria that they put together, for that particular solution? Have they been measuring it? Have they been capturing enough information? So you need to first of all determine if that particular measure exists, right? Or if method for capturing them are in place. So that is why at the end of every project or every phase of your project, you need to ensure you do some lesson learned. You need to ensure you capture some form of documentation into your repository. That way it becomes part of the knowledge, base for that project and for that enterprise, right? So you don't want to leave that organization and then they start wondering where the requirements are. Where some organizations are still very, very traditional. They don't even have the requirement system where they capture all of this information. So it might be stored in some sort of shared drive or somewhere, right? So you need to first of all go there and determine if the measure exists in any form, okay? And then you also need to ensure that any existing performance measures are accurate. So sometimes it might actually not be accurate. So that is where your skill and your competence, comes to play to ensure that whatever information you see, are well defined and also accurate and they can be used. They need to be fact driven, We need to be sure that there are some evidence, there are evidence-based, decisions that can be made from them. Okay, and then the objective, the business processes are common sources of measures. So everything just needs to tie together, it needs to align properly, right? You also need to ensure that the solution measure, the performance measures may be influenced or imposed by third party. And let me give you another example. So if you have a solution that currently exists, so I don't know if anyone works in a bank and in AML compliance sector here. So I think those guys will probably be the ones that, would be looking forward, to acquiring the skill of a business analyst, because sometimes governments can just impose some new regulations, that they need to quickly jump at and, add to whatever they do. You understand? So like I said, it's not every time that, you join an organization that you are, being told that you need to work on a new initiative. A lot of time it has to be that you need to develop or enhance or improve upon on what exists in that organization. And part of it is government, organizations trying to ensure you change some things, you change some rules, you had some privacy policy, you ensure, you are in compliance, you ensure your data is, well kept and not, cyber security and all of that. So now let's move on. And then you have the type and the nature of the measurements are considered when choosing the elicitation method. Okay, and then the type of solution measures depend on the value being measured. So for example, you can have the quantitative measures, which are numerical, you have the qualitative ones, which are subjective, right? And then you can have both as well, depending on the value that you are trying to measure. So the qualitative might be the attitude, the perception. Are people really using it, right? For example, if you're trying to do some automation, in data capturing for a particular business unit, and then the team just prefer to go into an Excel and enter it, or they prefer to open their logbook and write it down on a paper, right? So they might decide that, okay, that is how they want to do it. But how come they are not using a solution that the organization has paid, X amount of dollars for them to use that particular solution, but rather they prefer to just neglect that solution and they are not using. So that's also a measurement that can be done. You need to measure how people are, accepting that particular solution, how they are using it, their perception, their attitude towards that solution, apart from the numeric ones that you also need to capture. Okay, so the next one is to validate the performance measure. So it helps you to ensure that the assessment of solution performance is useful. So business analysts validate the performance measures and any influencing criteria with stakeholders. So you remember the validate requirement. So after you have gathered your requirement, you have elicited, you also need to go back to validate. So validating means you are getting the approval, their go ahead, to ensure that, okay, we are on the same page. So you need to ensure that you validate the performance measure with and any influencing criteria with your stakeholders, especially the sponsor. Okay, so whatever data you have captured, you have gathered, you need to take it back to your stakeholder to be sure that, okay, this is what I found, this is what I think, and all of that. So Then the next one is the sponsor or any stakeholders with decision-making authority decides which measures are used to evaluate solution performance. So the onus lies in them. So they need to decide on which decision-making or authority they need to use. Okay, so the next is collect performance measure. So the first one was we've defined the solution performance measures, validate performance measures, and then we collect the performance measures. So business analysts may facilitate discussions to estimate the qualitative measures value realized by a solution. And then they may also consider the following when collecting. So you need to consider the volume, the sample size, the frequency and the timing, and then the currency. So the currency means how recent, like the timeline, right? So measurements taken more frequently tend to be representative than others. This particular part comes in the exam question. I know I see it, and I think I've seen it. Jerry, would you agree with me? Yeah. So the data that you collect, you must ensure that they are not too old, right? So the ones that are recent, tend to be a better representative of your data. So that's what that is talking about. And then your frequency and your timing. How often do you get your measurements, right? With which measurements are taken may have an effect on the outcome. And then the volume and the sample size. So you might not want to go through all the entire data. Then you might need to decide on the volume and the size of your population. Okay, so the next one is your change strategy. So this comes under the guidelines and tools. And then we have the change strategy. So strategy analysis, like I said before, and I'll still go back again. So the fact that you saw strategy, you probably think strategy should come first. Yeah, sometimes it comes first. Sometimes it comes, everything are just intertwined. So you just need to understand the flow, right? So as part of the guidelines and tools here, we have the change strategy. So strategy used to implement a potential solution. So what this is saying is, the guidelines and the tools that you need to use to perform your solution measure. So what if after you have done your analysis and then there needs to be a change? So that is what this change strategy is talking about. So you need to understand what needs to be, to be put in place. And then you also have your future state description, right? How do you want to see the future state? What do you see that should be improved on that particular solution? So boundaries of the proposed, new, removed, or modified components, right? So you might decide that, okay, maybe some component needs to be removed, or how do we even envision the future, based on this particular solution or system that we have. And then you have the requirements that are already validated. So you have a set of requirements that have been analyzed and appraised to determine their value. And then you have your solution scope. So that is the boundary that your solution must be within, okay? Then the techniques, acceptance and evaluation criteria. So that comes, that is used to define the acceptable solution performance. And then you have your benchmarking and the market analysis. I made an example of that as well. So you need to do some market research and do some benchmarking, to be sure that that you are able to define your measures, and then they are at the acceptable levels. And then you have your business case as well. So it's used to define business objectives, performance measures for the proposed solution. And then you have your data mining, which is also very, very key here. So you use to collect and analyze large amounts of data regarding your solution performance. Decision analysis, you have your focus group, and then you have your metrics and your KPIs, okay? So used to measure solution performance. Any question?
No question in the chat. So unless anybody has a question to ask.
Please, if I'm going too fast, draw me back a bit. Okay. So we also have the non-functional requirement analysis. So where this comes to play is, I use the blog as an example, and then part of the non-functional requirements, you have the ease of use, you have the scalability, you have, everything that, talks about the attributes, the feel, everything, the looks, the image, you said the image was not so clear and all of that. So you need to do an analysis on the non-functional requirements. How easy is it for people to use? Is it easy for them, to log in? Is it well secured and all of that? Okay, and then you have your observation, where you go and just observe, just to look, at what is, how things are being done. And then you have your prototyping. So it's used to simulate a new solution so that performance measures can be determined and collected. So we have the survey and the questionnaire. So for the blog, we also did the survey and questionnaire just to say how people, their perception and how they think should be improved, or how they want that new solution to be like. Okay, we have the use cases and the scenarios. We have the vendor assessments. And then the stakeholders, you have your customers, they may be consulted to provide feedback on solution performance. Okay, then you have the domain subject matter experts, so person familiar with the domain who can be consulted to provide potential measurements. And then you have the end users, contribute to the actual value realized by the solution in terms of solution performance, and then maybe consulted to provide reviews and feedback on areas such as workload and job satisfaction. Okay, project managers, we have the sponsors, and then we have the regulators. And then the output is solution performance measurements. Okay, so measures that provide information on how well the solution is performing or potentially could perform. Okay, so that is it for that particular task. Any question? Any question? Okay, so let's move on. So we have analyzed performance measures. So the purpose of that is provide insight into the performance of a solution in relation to the value it brings. Like I said before, after you have done your measurement, and then you now need to analyze based on the value, that it brings for you, for the organization. Okay. And then the description is interpret and derive meaning on measures collected from the first one, the first task. And then business analysts require a thorough understanding of the potential value that the stakeholders hope to achieve with the solution. Analyze by considering these variables, right? The goals and the objectives, your KPIs, you remember KPI again, is showing up again. Levels of risk of the solution, risk tolerance of both stakeholders and enterprise, and then other stated targets. So we have the input for this, we have the potential value. And then we have the solution performance measures. And then the output is solution performance analysis. Okay, and then the task using this, we have the assess solution limitations and then assess enterprise limitations. And then the guidelines and tools, we have the change strategy, we have the future state description, we have the risk analysis result, and then the solution scope. Okay, so let's talk about the input. So potential value. So potential value talks about, you describe the value that may be realized by implementing the proposed future states. Also can be used as a benchmark against which solution performance can be evaluated. And then the second one is the solution performance measures. So it talks about the measures and provide the information on how well the solution is performing or potentially could perform. Okay, I think this is clear enough, right? So the input for this particular one is, after you had gathered, you have your measurements, your solution measurements, and then you now need to analyze the solution performance. So part of the things you need that comes as an input, you need to understand what is your potential value. So what are you hoping to achieve, that will help you to implement the proposed future state of that particular solution. And then you can also use that potential value to benchmark against which solution performance can be evaluated. And then you have your performance measurements as well. And then you have your elements, solution performance versus desired value. Okay, so business analysts examine the measures previously collected to assess the solution's ability to help stakeholders understand the solution value. High performing solutions may contribute a lower value than expected, and then low performing but potentially valuable solutions may be enhanced to increase its performance. So I guess this is clear enough, right? So this is solution performance versus desired value. So what this is talking about is you need to examine the measure previously collected to assess the solution's ability to help stakeholders understand the value, the solution's value. So if the measures are not sufficient to determine the solution value, the business analyst can either collect more measurements or treat the lack of measure as a solution risk. I think this is clear enough. So let me move forward. And then the risk part of the element. So you have the risk. So performance measures may uncover new risk to solution performance or to the enterprise. So you can actually, as you have done your measurements, right now you're analyzing. So you might actually discover some things that poses some risk, you know, to the organization at large, really, or to the solution itself. So it might be relating to the cyber risk. Maybe there are some things are not well defined. For instance, maybe the way customers of Scotiabank log into the banking platform, the password is not strong enough, right? So that might actually pose a risk to that particular solution. So if, for instance, you want to have a new component for people to be able to check their credit score, and yet you are not able to validate that the people that are even logging on are the real customers of that particular account. So how do you, so after you have done your measurement and then you're analyzing, so you can actually discover some risk that can potentially, you know, affect this entire solution or the organization, which needs to, you know, to be well, you need to define a risk response, you know, to that. Either you want to transfer, you want to mitigate, or you want to avoid, or whatever, you know, risk challenge that you want to apply to that, risk response you want to apply to that. So also we have trend. So a large enough sample size or collected data over a sufficient period of time. Okay, so when we're talking about the KPI and the metrics and all of that, so the trend just shows, you know, the what's it called, you know, over a period of time. If you plot it on a graph, and then you'll be able to see how, you know, how the shapes or how the direction of the trend, you know, looks like. Okay, so business analysts consider a time period when the data was collected to guard against anomalies, right, and then skewed trends. So once you plot it on a graph, you'll be able to understand, are you trying to capture, are you trying to analyze the measure for the past 1 year or 6 months? So you need to determine, you know, the trend that you're actually trying to focus on, that will give you the right data, you know, that can be used for further, you know, implementation. So you have accuracy here as well. So essential to the validity of the analysis. So you need to ensure that the data you're capturing, you know, are kind of accurate. So business analysts test and analyze the data collected by the performance measures to ensure their accuracy. Results of performance measures should be reproducible, and repeatable. So whatever data you have captured, right? So you should be able to repeat it again. So this also goes back to your test cases. So when you are doing your test cases, before you can assume or determine or decide that this particular, there is actually a defect on this particular solution component, you must be able to reproduce that steps, and it must give you that same result that you have gotten. So that is what that particular thing is talking about. So that is the only way you can ensure that it is accurate, or whatever information that you are generating from that, it's actually valid, right? So it must be repeatable. So when you are doing your test cases, you have, you know, tests, test to pass, test to fail, and then you talk about the tests to steps to reproduce. So you need to put, how did you arrive? How did you, you know, check? How did you test the solution, and how did you get to this point? So you need to put all the tests, all the steps that, you know, that you encountered. Okay, you logged in first, you clicked on this, you clicked on that. After you put in this, it gave me this, right? So another person, a third party or an independent tester, quality assurance person, should be able to go on that particular test case and test it again, and he or she must be able to get the same result that you have gotten. So that is exactly what this is talking about. So I will try to analyze, as in put these measurements, try to, you know, fit it in into testing, test cases, you know, solution testing, right? So you need to ensure that your solution, you have your some organizations have their templates that they use. Some have a system that they use. So if your organization has a requirement repository or a Jira system, so as you are putting all your requirements, you have everything all traceable to the test cases, and then you can go back. So like I said, don't be surprised when you go into an organization, they might actually not have all these things. So sometimes it just looks like a fancy word, like, oh, hey, Joe, not everyone practice the way we see it everywhere. That's the truth. Okay, so but a lot of people actually do. So in this case, if the solution doesn't have any document at all, then you will need to start from the scratch, from the beginning, to start doing all your analysis. But if they do, then that's a plus for you. You probably not need to do so much into trying to understand and doing all your analysis. Okay, and then we have the performance variances. So difference between expected and the actual performance, right? You consider when analyzing your solution performance. Root cause analysis may be necessary, to analyze the causes of the significant variance within a solution. So what this basically is talking about is, like I said, our KPI is we want to be number one bank in North America. And then our high-level goal is, okay, we want to ensure that we have maybe 30,000 new or 500,000 new customer every week and all of that. And then that is the target. But yet we are here with 2,000 every month. So the variance, it actually is not meeting the target, right? So you now need to do some root cause analysis. You need to ask, the cause and effects using the Ishikawa, or you can use the 5 whys to really understand, go to the root cause to understand where the problems, are actually coming from. So the guidelines and tools, we have the change strategy is popping up again. So strategy used or is in use to implement the potential value. Okay, and then we have this future state description, boundaries of the proposed new, removed, or modified components of the enterprise, and the potential value expected from the future states. We have the risk analysis results. So like I said before, you need to, after, the way you have, you start doing your analysis, you can actually identify some risk, during that, and you should be able to analyze your risk analysis results. So overall level of risk and the planned approach to modifying the individual risk. So the planned approach that they're talking about is your risk response, right? So what do you think the organization should do after you have discovered, some of these risks? So you need that as well. And then you have your solution scope, which talks about the boundary, to measure and to evaluate. So under the techniques, we have the acceptance and the evaluation criteria. So it's used to define the acceptable solution performance. Degree of variance from this criteria will guide the analysis of that performance. So benchmarking and market analysis, you have your data mining as well. We have interviews, so you can actually use interview technique, to do further analysis. So it is used to determine expected value of a solution and its perceived performance from an individual or a small group perspective. And then we have the metrics and the KPI again. So it's used to analyze the solution performance, especially when judging how well a solution contributes to achieving the goal. And then we have the observation. So observation is used to observe a solution in action if the data collected does not perform definitive conclusions. So we also have the risk analysis and management. We have the root cause analysis. We have the survey and the questionnaires. The stakeholders, we have the domain subject matter expert, project manager, the sponsors, and then the output is the solution performance analysis. So this talks about the result of your analysis, right? The recommendations to solve the performance gap. And then you have the leverage opportunity to improve the value. Okay, any question? Do you have any question for me?
I have a question.
Okay.
Potential value is an input and an output.
Potential value, I didn't get that.
Potential value is an input as well as an output.
To this particular task? No, I didn't get that, Judy. Could you please come again?
So potential value is an output.
The output here is the solution performance analysis, the analysis of your results.
Potential value is an input.
Yes,
Okay, I'm reading something wrong. Sorry, forget I ever opened my mouth. I'm sorry.
So it's an input here. No, it's okay, Judy. Potential value is an input, but it's not an output. So the output here is the solution performance analysis.
The output is in the previous.
Okay, let me go back to the previous one.
8.1.
So yeah, it's not also an output, it's the measurement itself. The solution performance measures.
Okay, as I said, forget
output.
what I was talking about.
No, it's fine.
It's good that you ask questions so that you clarify.
Exactly.
So because if you don't ask, you probably just go away thinking that's the answer. So that's why we're here. So please feel free to ask questions anytime you need any clarification. So I think there's a question. Someone said, in strategy analysis, it's an output. Oh, okay. It's like in strategy and analysis, it's an output.
It is an output of the current state, right?
Yeah. So okay, that's KD.
Okay.
That's why BABOK sometimes can be very confusing.
Exactly.
I understand.
Okay, so we move on to the next task. We have the assess solution limitation. So what this basically is talking about is not so different from what we have talked about before. The first one is we're talking about the measurement. So what kind of measurements do you want to, talks about the measurement of the solution itself. And then the second one is you now analyze the measurements, right? You analyze the result of the solution measurement. That's the KPIs and all of that you have done on the solution. So the third one is now to assess the limitation, right? So you have the results, right? So you now need to assess the limitation. For some, sometimes there may actually not be any limitation, right? So you might just decide to just, let it go. But like I said, if it's an existing solution that needs an enhancement, this particular knowledge area will probably be the part of the first set of things you need to do, as part of your analysis. So you need to assess the limitation of that particular solution. So the purpose is it talks about, you determine the factor internal to the solution that restricts the full realization of value. Okay, and then the description, we talk about you identify the root causes. So remember when we're talking about the analysis of the solution measurement, so you have done some root cause analysis, you've gone deeper, to really understand, okay, could it be relating to job satisfaction or employee morals? You understand? I think that's actually, employee morale is actually enterprise limitation. So maybe it might actually be maybe lack of technical skill, of the users. Maybe that's why they are not using it, or maybe there's just something wrong with the solution. So this is where you analyze, after you have done your root cause analysis, then you now need to assess the limitation of a particular solution. So it's closely linked to a task 8.4, which is the enterprise, like I said, and then it also focuses on the assessment of the internal factors that is limiting the solution's value or potential value. Okay, so here we have the task, the input, we have the implemented solution, external is coming back again, right? And then we have the solution performance analysis, which is the previous one we just finished. And the output for this is solution limitation. And then the other task using this particular output, we have the analyze current states. You remember when I said strategy analysis might actually be maybe the third thing you would do. This might actually be the first thing you will do. You can say that even your result from this particular task is being used in strategy analysis, okay? And then guidelines and tools, we have the change strategy again, the risk analysis result, and then the solution scope. Okay, inputs, implemented solution external. So like someone helped us with, this is not been produced by any task or any other knowledge area. That's why it's external. And then, so it means an existing solution may or may not be operational. It might actually be a prototype. So it might be an idea that was generated a long time ago, and the organization probably didn't have the funding, to move forward with it. And then at this point, they now want to move forward with it, right? So it must be in use in some form and for it to be evaluated. And then the second input is the solution performance analysis, which came from the previous task. So the result of the analysis or of measurement collected, and then recommendations to solve for performance gaps. And then the last one is to leverage opportunities to improve value. So the elements, identify internal solution component dependencies, and then investigate solution problems. So the first one, I think it's pretty much straightforward. So you want to identify the internal solution component dependencies. So I would say, for instance, maybe you have an ERP system, your enterprise resource planning system is being linked to your other platforms. There's some API integrations, right? That is connecting different systems. So you want to first of all identify the other system that are connected to that particular solution. So you identify solution components which have dependencies on other solution components, and determine if any of those limits performance, solution performance and value realization. So as I was giving the example of the ERP, so your HR system might also be connected to that particular system. So you need to try to first of all identify those components, that may or may not, be limiting you from realizing the value of that particular solution. So the next one is you investigate the solution problem. So perform to identify the source of the problem, conducted when the solution is consistently or repeatedly producing ineffective output. And then as a business analyst, you also identify the problems by examining the instances where the outputs from the solution are below an acceptable level of quality, or where the potential value has not been realized. Okay, so impact assessment. So we have the business analyst review the identified problems to assess the effect that may have on the operation of the organization or ability of the solution to deliver its potential value. So I think this is also clear enough, so I don't need to read line by line. So the impact assessment is just for you to really understand the problem, the effects on the operations. You need to check the probability, of the reoccurrence of the problems. You also need to, check the problems, identify the problems that must be resolved, mitigated, or accepted. And then you also need to put some quality control measures in place, right? And then your risk assessment as well. So your guidelines and tools, we have the change strategy. So strategy used in place. So I'm not going to read that again. So also risk analysis result, and then the solution scope, similar to the previous task as well. And then the techniques, we have the acceptance and evaluation criteria. We have the benchmarking and market analysis. We have the business analysis results. So business rules results, sorry about that. So business rules, can someone please explain business rules? Let's make it interactive. Hello.
Yeah, let me just say, business rules is just is unique to every organization.
Okay.
Like let's say the airline industry now, there are rules in that guide the purchase of tickets. Maybe you want to say like one customer cannot buy more than 2 tickets, or so it just comes like those are the things that guide. Maybe you can okay, let's stick to banking. Like you cannot transfer more than $10,000, yes, per transaction. So those are like the business rules that guide the operation of that particular product solution. So business rules analysis is just, okay, when you go there, usually there is a document. It's always hosted in a repository. Like you go to the repository and you go through like, these are the business rules. So the business analyst can go there and now look at the rules one after the other to see how they impact the solution. and check if there is something we can do to improve, the solution, how the solution operates, how we work with it.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So let me just add to that as well. So, in Canada, they might say that you need to get to a certain age before you can have a bank account, right? So that's also a business rule. And then part of the solution limitation might be that, okay, but RBC is, opening bank account for children, right? How come our own business rule is limiting us from expanding our outreach, to acquiring new customers? So maybe it's something that the sponsor or the organization needs to look into. So sometimes business rules actually impact, your solution, from achieving your overall goals. So it's good to have them in place, so it serves as a check and balance, especially if you have some regulatory requirements, or if your line of business relates to, something that the regulators would frequently come to audit. So you need to put some things in place. You don't even want to miss it at all, right? But sometimes you still need to do some reevaluation on, how you can ensure that your solution, are being used adequately and effectively. Okay, so let's move on. It's not moving. Okay, so we have data mining, we have decision analysis, we have interviews, we have item tracking. Who can please explain item tracking?
Documenting issues that arise between stakeholders.
Oh yeah, it's also showing here. So, it's very, very important. So as a business owner, you need to have, and well, depending on your organization, a lot of time people use Excel. You just need to keep tracking and, keep tracking issues. You need to keep logging them. You never know when or something would happen, and they need to refer to that. And it should also be shared as well with other stakeholders.
Yeah, not just issues, like their concerns, whatever they point out as the solution analysis, as the solution evaluation goes on, whatever they point out, like, okay, we should consider this later. Just put it down there for reference.
Yeah. Okay, so lesson learned is here again. So it's just to determine what can be learned from the inception or from the previous projects. Definition and construction of the solution to have potentially impacted its ability to deliver value. So we have the risk analysis and management, and then we have the root cause analysis as well. Survey and questionnaire. And then our stakeholders are, we have the customer, we have the domain subject matter expert, we have the end users, we have the regulators, the sponsor, the tester, the solution limitation. Okay, any question? Any question? Okay, I'll ask my question. So how do we perform tests to pass, tests to fail? Yes,
sorry,
please.
I was asking a question. Sorry, I was using the headset. I said, why don't we have a project manager as part of the sponsor of the very last one? The assess.
This one?
Yes.
Because, like I said, it depends on how the project is structured, right? The project manager might actually not come to play here, because this still relates to analysis. It's a task defined or set out for a business analyst. So you are doing an analysis on a solution that currently exists or that has just been deployed. But here we have the tester. So I don't know. This is how BABOK structured it, really. I don't know why a project manager is not there.
I stated a reason, because in questioning us, they might be very tricky in bringing in the project manager into this and said which of the following is not an interested party in the solution, in the assessment solution limitation. So it's good to know the basis for which the PM is exonerated from.
You remember, okay, so let's go back to define the role of a project manager or define what a project is. So a project is a temporary endeavor that has a start and an end. So at this point, the solution has been delivered. So the project manager is actually not a player here at this point, because the solution, he or she has come on board, they've employed the project manager, the business case has been handed over to him, the project order has been handed over to him. His own task is gather your project team and implement the solution. And then after then, they deliver the solution. So like I said, this might be part of the initiative that would come later, as part of the analysis. You can also say that there is no business analyst here. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah, it's
So
always not
who then drives this particular section of the process if a PM is not there?
Okay, so
no, the business analyst is not always listed here, but business analyst is always in the play, is the one that leads out this process here.
Activities, yeah.
Yes, most of these are the activity. You won't see business analyst listed as a stakeholder here, but business analyst drives all this.
So another thing to note is in some organizations, you don't even have a PM. A PM is also acts as a BA. So it depends on how large the organization is or how structured they are, right? If it's
it's okay, because I asked this question. If they ask me in the exam, I'll remember this one.
You remember? Anyway, for me, I think based on my limited understanding, the project is just a temporary thing, and the PM would have delivered on the solution and would have gone his or her own way. You understand? And then the BA is now trying to analyze, do some measurements. Like I said, and let's just think about it as an existing solution. You understand? At this point, you are not talking about improving on the solution at this point. You are still doing an analysis. For me, I would think in that line of thought to say, okay, the PM is not here because I'm just doing an analysis on a solution.
Okay, we can proceed. Like I said, because I asked this question, I can't miss it when I see it next time.
Okay, so like I said, I was going to ask my own question. So how do you perform a test to pass and a test to fail on a solution? Or what is the difference between test to pass and test to fail?
Well, I think you need to come up with a criteria of your test, such that below it is a pass, is a fail, and above it is a pass or something like that.
Any other person, please?
It's just based on the acceptance criteria that you've already set before starting the project, like the solution. So if you're developing a solution, you set out all the criteria. So when the test starts, you start ticking all the boxes. If it doesn't go, if this one doesn't work, then it's a fail. So I believe it's just based on your acceptance criteria.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And another way to, yes, please.
Judy is saying that she doesn't understand your question.
Okay, so the difference between test to pass. So if you have a solution, right, and then you are trying to test, like I said, we are still trying to do the measurement, you are analyzing, you are assessing the solution limitation. And part of that is you need to do some testing on that solution. BABOK did not really elaborate on it, but in the IT world, you need to put some test cases down, and then you need to test that solution, to beat as well. So that's why I'm asking that. Do you know, how can you differentiate between test to pass and test to fail?
Like QA, negative and positive testing?
Okay, so just to add to that, you can also try as much as possible to test to fail might be planned to break that system, right? You already know that what you are keying into that particular solution is not right. So different from what Chime said, right? It's not like you're just trying to test all your own test cases. No, you can even go above and beyond and just put some, some some things that can break the system. You are trying, test to fail is you are just trying to break that system, just to see that that system will, just to test if that system will break or not. Okay. For instance, you have your password settings. So if you want to log in, you already know that the characters are, uppercase, lowercase, and signs and symbols and all of that. You already know that, but you now went ahead to just put some other, other elements into it just to see if the system will bulge or not. So you are trying to break that system just to be sure that the system is truly strong and it's truly, was truly implemented based on how it's supposed to be implemented.
Okay,
Jerry, you want to say something?
I have a question.
Under cybersecurity, is this the same thing as penetration test?
Not really. That is a bit more technical, but it's related. Okay. But for penetration testing, you are writing some codes to break into the system. But this particular one, you are just testing, like you are trying to test the login features, for instance, right? You want to see if the system can actually take some characters that are not listed as part of what they should take. Okay. So you are just going above and beyond just to be sure that everything is, is well in place.
I don't think BABOK, I'm sorry, I don't think that they're ever going to test anything about testing, because according to IIBA, if you're doing testing, you're not a BA.
Yes, I know. I totally agree. I only ask, but you never know. Like I said, in some organizations, right, you might actually act as everything. So as part of, let me go back to, you can see the tester here, responsible for identifying solution problems during construction and implementation, not often used in assessing an existing solution outside of a chain. So according to BA, yes, you're right. And also you can see that project manager too sometimes, but you never know where you might end up working. They might actually not have different roles for a tester, for a PM and all of that. You might be the one to do everything. Right.
Yeah, sometimes you write text cases.
Yeah. And then they put it also as part of the caveat, when during the job description, they'll say as described, or you can be assigned roles as, as directed or something. You never know. So
I do
you're right, actually.
I do the test cases and I do the testing.
Exactly. Tony, you are right. During the exam, you will see so many things
related to testing.
That are even not in the BABOK. You'll be wondering.
Yes.
Was this ever in BABOK?
Yes. So that's why they tend to use your skills and your experience and your competencies. Yes.
Yes. They're not only testing you on what is written. No. Exactly. They're testing you because they're assuming that you have experience as a BA.
Yeah.
And okay, so it will be interesting for everyone to attend the session with Rita tomorrow, because I discussed with her, and she said she got so many calculation questions, and none came from BABOK.
Exactly. So okay, look at another example is a SIPOC. I'm sure you probably would have seen SIPOC in BABOK, but it was just something you probably would read through. You just breeze it through, but you never know that they're actually focusing on those things. Man-hour calculation, the man-hour timing, how long it would take, average hour to move from point A to point B. I was actually mentioning that as an example as well. So those are the things. So BABOK, the exam is very, very practical.
Yes.
Very, very practical. So the fact that it's not listed in BA still doesn't in BABOK still doesn't mean that you will not perform those roles.
Okay. So because of what I just said, some people are asking me questions on the session tomorrow. I actually talked about it at the beginning of this session. So towards the end, I'll also talk about it again. So let's just continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one is assess enterprise limitation. So for this, the purpose is to determine the factors external to the solution that are restricting value realization. I think I already made an example relating to that. So it might be the knowledge gap, of the team. It might be cultural issues, perception, attitude. People don't like change. For some reason, they just resist. If you are trying to push a new IT solution, please, we have not even, finished the one that we have. We are bringing another one for us to, to deal with. You understand? So those are this is kind of assessments that as a BA, you also need to assess how people perceive, that particular solution that has been deployed for them to use. So the issue might actually not be on the solution. It might be the enterprise culture. It might be that maybe what needs to change is training. You understand? So let's just keep going. So the description says identify root causes and describe how enterprise factors limit value realization. Okay, so such as culture, can you see, operation, technical components, interest, and then the reporting structure. And then another one is it's performed at any point during the solution cycle, and the assessment activities are similar and require the same skills. Okay, and then assessment may also occur on a solution component during the development or on a completed solution prior to full implementation. So assessment may occur on an existing solution that is currently working within an organization. I hope this is clear enough. Okay, so not that solution operates across various organizations within an enterprise and therefore have many interactions and interdependencies. Solution may depend on environmental factors that are external to the enterprise. Okay, so here we have the task, we have the input. The input for this is implemented or constructed solution external. Same thing again, right? We have the solutions, the current state description, and then we have the solution performance analysis. So the next is the output for this is enterprise limitation. And then the other task that are using that output, we have the analyze current state, and then the recommend solution, recommend actions to increase solution value. The guidelines and tools, we have the business objective, we have the change strategy, we have the future state description, the risk analysis results, and then the solution scope. So let's just move on. So for the input, we have the current state description. So current state description is now coming to play now. So this is a task under strategy analysis. So at that point, Jerry, you remember when we started the project, right? So what we did was to align all the tasks just to ensure there is a perfect. So maybe when you start out on your roles as BA, right, you might be thinking that, oh, this thing, BABOK, am I really going to use it? So part of the advice I would give is, check all these tasks one by one. If you have a new initiative or a new project, you need to, first of all, prepare your flow, your schedule on how you want to, start performing those tasks one after the other. And that way it gives you a better, view of what you're trying to achieve. You understand? So if you want to go page by page, based on what is in BABOK, that would not help you at all. That will not help you. Okay, so current internal environment of the solution, including environmental, cultural, and internal factors influencing the solution limitation. So that is what the current state description is, which is an output under analyze current state. Okay, and then we have the implemented or constructed solution external. So we are back again to the original solution. So you have a solution, you now need to assess what is the limitation. We have done the measurement, we have done the analysis, we have done the solution limitation. Now, what is limiting the overall organization, towards accepting this solution? So this is you trying to really check what is happening here, based on the solution. So it's an existing solution, may or may not be operational, right? Like I said, it might be in form of a prototype. Okay, must be in use in some form to be evaluated. And then another input is the solution performance analysis, which comes from the second task of this particular knowledge area. So result of the analysis or measurement collected, recommendations to solve for performance gaps, leverage opportunities to improve value. So elements, the enterprise culture assessments. This is very, very important. So I don't know if you have any change managers here or change specialists. So it's carved out of, I think the certification they write for that is proxy. And then maybe a project manager too can also act as a change manager. Some BAs can also act to be change manager. So what this basically means is people don't like change. So as for that particular role, you need to understand the culture, understand the audience, understand the needs, and how do you want to introduce that change. So there needs to be a gradual process, for people to accept it. So it might be that for this particular solution, there was no change manager, to bring people up to speed into accepting that solution. Some solutions sometimes are very, very complicated, and you can never, maybe in 5 years, you probably would not be able to even derive the full benefit of that particular solution. So the issues relating to that might be that, people they just don't believe in having that solution. Why should the organization waste money to even build this thing in the first place? Please, 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 I'm not even interested in using it, right? Or it's just a norm, or maybe the people are old and they just don't like technology. Okay, for instance, let's use the pandemic as an example, right? So the kids were at home, and for some regions within Ontario, some were able to leverage on the technology tools for the virtual online learning. Some did not, and the schools had to organize presentation and training on how to use technology, how to use tools and technology, how to use online video conferencing tools, for them to be able to bring them up to speed. So it might be that those kind of people are also in this kind of organizations, that they have the tool, but they are just not interested in using it. Okay, so let's move on. So business analysts perform cultural assessments. So one, identify whether or not stakeholders understand the reason why a solution exists. A lot of times they don't. They just feel management is just stressing them out. Okay, ascertain whether or not stakeholders view the solution as something beneficial and are supportive of the change. Sometimes, yeah, well, maybe if you had carried them along, when the project started, maybe they would have been more interested in it. But a lot of time, people don't like change. I have experienced that a lot of time. Okay, determine if and what cultural changes are required to better realize value from that solution. So that's the kind of assessments you do on this, okay? And then you involve evaluating the extent to which the enterprise culture can accept a solution. So cultural adjustments are needed to support the solution. Assessment is used to judge the enterprise ability and willingness to adapt to these cultural changes. It's a lot of time, it just comes to them as a shock, right? They are not just tech savvy, right? You want to design a dashboard and you are asking them to download Power BI desktop, and everything just looks vague, and what's all this? Please, I'm okay with my Excel and however way, that they are doing their thing. But deep down, they don't even know that you're trying to help them to automate their process to improve how work is being done. And another thing is, a lot of time they feel that when you automate a process, their jobs are at risk. So they just don't want to adopt whatever solution you are giving to them because they don't want to lose their jobs. So those are the cultural, issues and the challenges that people have on solutions. So determine what communication activities are needed to ensure awareness and understanding of the solution. So like I said, it will take a while, but you don't expect them to jump at it immediately. They are afraid, they believe, they are not tech savvy, they don't want to lose their jobs. If the job that they ordinarily would take them maybe 48 hours to do, and then you are introducing a system that will just improve that process, for them to complete that task in 5 to 10 minutes, and you want them to just adopt it like that so that they won't have anything to do. So it's really, really a tough call, and it's going to take a while for people to adopt those kind of changes. So stakeholder impact analysis provides insight into how the solution affects a particular stakeholder group. So business analysts consider functions, locations, and concerns. So please take note of these three. It might come out in the exam. So functions, so the process in which the stakeholders uses the solution, which include inputs a stakeholder provides into the process, how the stakeholder uses the solution to execute the process, and what output the stakeholder receives from the process. So that is the function. And then the location is the geographic locations of the stakeholders interacting with the solution. If the stakeholders are in disparate location, it may impact their use of the solution and their ability to realize the value of the solution. So concerns, the issues, risk, and overall concerns the stakeholders have with the solution. So this may include the use of solution, the perception of the value of the solution, and the impact of the solution has on the stakeholders' ability to perform necessary function. Okay? And then we have the organizational structure changes. So assess how the organizational structure is impacted by a solution. Business analysts will consider the following: use of a solution and the ability to adopt a change can be enabled or blocked by formal or informal relationship among stakeholders. Reporting structure may be too complex or too simple to allow a solution to perform effectively. The organizational hierarchy supporting the solution is a key activity. Informal relationships within an organization, whether alliances, friendship, or matrix reporting, impact the ability of a solution to deliver potential value. Any question before I move forward? Any question?
Just a quick comment.
Okay.
That the organizational culture can be more difficult to change than the software solution implementation.
Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree with you. So like that, I say it will take a while, a long while.
Yeah, and also sometimes you just find out that people play politics.
A lot,
You know,
yeah.
I've been on one project like that. We're trying to like do the assessment and everything. Find out that because the people didn't like the sponsor of the project, the person that was leading out, you know, so they were just, you know, they weren't showing support. You know, if you ask if you ask them to come for a meeting, you know, some people just, they are not willing to come, you know, so they don't get that support. So it ultimately affects the solution.
I totally agree with you. Okay. Yeah.
I think we have a comment here. Culture eats strategy for lunch. Quote from Drucker 40 years ago, still true.
Yeah.
Culture is very strong.
It is.
Leadership commitment to change is a factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next element is operational assessment. So it determines if an enterprise is able to adapt to or effectively use a solution. So I think this also talks about, I think we've also, you know, covered this already in some of the examples we gave. So determines if an enterprise is able to adapt. So even the enterprise itself might be, for instance, let's give an example of the HR career page, right? So a lot of organizations are now adopting the what's it called again? Workday, or I think it's owned by SAP. So you don't expect all organizations to just jump in, you know, because organization A is using it and, you know, it's making their work more effective. And then you as a consultant, you want to sell Workday solution to organization B that does not even believe, you know, in what that solution has to deliver. You understand? So they are not even sure if they can actually use it effectively. You understand? Okay, so this identifies which processes and tools within the enterprise are adequately equipped to benefit from the solution, and if sufficient and appropriate assets are in place to support it. So another thing is maybe the organization might also not have the right skill sets. An exact example is the Power BI. So you're trying to automate a reporting system, right? But the organization does not even also lack the skill sets that is required to even use that particular solution. So why would a consultant market Microsoft Power BI to an organization that does not even believe in it? Even if they do believe in it, who is going to manage or man that particular position? You understand? So they also lack, you know, the tools, the processes, even the people, the power, the skills that needs to use that particular solution. So business analysts consider the following: policies and procedures, capability and processes that enable other capabilities, skills and training needs. You can say I mentioned that already. Human resource practices, risk tolerance and management approach, tools and technology that support a solution. So under guidelines and tools, we have the business objectives here again. We have the change strategy. We have the future state description. So you can see that everything here, you will continue to see future state description. I think it's only under one task that, and this question actually, I'm not sure if it came out, but I've seen it a couple of times. So future state, under solution evaluation, you might want to go check it again. There's a particular task that doesn't have future state description. I think it might be the analysis one, or yeah, and I think the question came out. Okay, so future state description, risk analysis results, and then the solution scope. And the technique that you can use when you're assessing enterprise solution, you can use the benchmarking and market analysis. That is you trying to benchmark with your competitors, you know, trying to see what they do and how you can do better, or where the gaps are. Okay, then brainstorming, so you can organize a workshop and you guys can do a brainstorming session, or you can do it on your own just to figure out where things are going wrong. Data mining, that is you know, relying on the data that currently exists in the organization that can be used as an evidence-based decision making. Then you have the decision analysis, you have the document analysis, you have the interviews. If you need to go and, you know, start eliciting, organizing interviews just to hear, you can even do it. I'm not sure if observation is this. Yes, so you can also go ahead and observe, you know, go to someone's desk, right? Of course, not without invitation, just to see how he or she is doing whatever he's doing, you know, in relation to that solution. And you might say that they just dump the solution, they don't even use it, and they just prefer to use Excel sheets. Or for instance, if you are trying to introduce SharePoint, online SharePoint, that will make, you know, their job so easy, yet they are still saving documents in their shared drives. Why are they not using SharePoint? You know, so you just need to really understand where the issues are and do some sort of assessments. Okay, you have your item tracking as well, where you log your issues, your concerns, you know, in relation to your stakeholders and all of that. And then you have the lesson learned. So that is used to analyze the previous, previous initiatives and the enterprise interaction with the solution. So that is if you are lucky that the previous BA or PM had some documentation saved for this project. Otherwise, you just need to, you know, generate it on your own. We have the organizational modeling, okay, used to ensure that the identification of any required changes to the organizational structure that may have been addressed. You have the process analysis, used to identify possible opportunities to improve performance. And then you have the process modeling, used to illustrate the current business processes and or changes that must be made in order to achieve the potential value of the solution. So on that technique, we are still, it's very long. So we still have risk analysis and management. We have the roles and permission matrix. So root cause analysis, we have the survey and the questionnaire, we have the SWOT analysis, and then we have the workshop. Any question? So our stakeholders, we have the customer, we have the domain subject matter experts, we have the end user, we have the regulators, we have the sponsor, and then our output is the enterprise limitation. So this is a description of the current limitation of the enterprise, including how the solution performance is impacting the enterprise. Any question?
Just an observation. I think there's a very thin line between assess solution limitation and assess enterprise limitation. Is a bit confusing sometimes.
It can be confusing, but for the solution limitation, that one is really talking about the solution components. So it might be relating to the login feature, the page, the outlook, the data reporting, the accessibility, you know. But for the enterprise, it's talking about, it's external to the solution, even though it's also in relation to the solution, how the organization, how they're accepting that solution. So that's where we talked about the cultural assessment, their perception, their attitudes, and all of that. So
yes, the key word there is just component, solution component.
Exactly.
That's what differentiates. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question before we move to the final task?
And I also want to add that if you look at their inputs, they look like they have the same thing. The only difference is that in assess enterprise limitation has current state as an input. Yes, it has 3, but the other 2 are the same with assess solution limitation. So everybody should take note of that, because I've seen a question on that as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, one enterprise can have many different solutions, right? Can have an accounting system and an HR system, but how it affects the whole enterprise is sort of the umbrella that they're all underneath.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but in this particular one, we are still talking about one solution, even though we also reference the interconnectivity, interdependency of other solutions. That may also be, so I think we talked about that under the solution limitation. So part of the issues, the element for that is you also need to assess the interconnect or the dependencies with other solutions, how it's impacting that particular solution. But for the enterprise, it's still, everything is still based on one solution, right? But you can also try to do an assessment of, you know, the overall, yeah, maybe your KPI might also be in relation to, okay, how come they are using this system and they are not using that system? But for this particular task, what's the keyword is how they perceived that solution, their attitude towards that solution. Even the organization itself, how well are they using the solution? Is there any, you know, are there any challenges or any hindrances that is not letting them derive, you know, the full benefit from that solution? After they have spent, you know, a lot of money to build it, yet it's not, they are not deriving the, you know, the real value from it. Okay, so let's move to the last one. Recommend actions to increase solution value. So this is after you have done all your solution. Now is to now recommend actions to increase solution value. So the purpose of this is to understand the factors that create differences between potential value and the actual value. And then you need to recommend an action. Okay, so you focus on understanding the aggregate of the performed assessments, that is the measure, analyze, determine causes of unacceptable solution performances. You've identified the alternatives and the actions to improve the solution. And then you also, your recommendation generally identify how solutions should be replaced, retired, or enhanced. Remember? And then you consider long-term effects and contributions of the solution stakeholders. May include recommendations to adjust the organization to allow for maximum solution performance and value realization. So for this, the inputs are the solution limitation and then the enterprise limitation. So those two are what are needed, you know, for you to be able to recommend an action to increase the value of that solution. And then the output is you have the recommended actions. And then the task that is using this output is manage stakeholder collaboration. You see how we went back again to stakeholder collaboration. We went back to elicitation and collaboration. So like I said, there's no right way or wrong way. It just depends on the project you are working on. So how it's paged on BABOK is not how it is in real life. You just need to structure it yourself to be sure that you know what comes first and what should come next. Okay. And then the guidelines and tools, we have the business objectives, the current state description, and then the solution scope. Okay, so the inputs, enterprise limitation. Remember, we talked about the current limitation that the enterprise is having, right? Including how the solution performance is impacting the enterprise. Okay, and then the solution limitation is description of the current limitation of the solution, including constraints and defects. So this is another differentiators. You remember when we're talking about the test cases and all of that too. So you might actually would have discovered some constraints on that solution, and then maybe there are some defects as well. Like I said, you check the login, you check the page and all of that. So those are the components you are trying to check on that particular solution. So the elements, so for one, you adjust the solution performance measure. So analysis efforts to identify and define more appropriate measure to may be required. Okay, applicable for cases where the performance of a solution is considered acceptable but may not support the fulfillment of business goals and objectives. The next one is recommendations. So recommendations often describe ways to increase solution performance. So this is not always the case, right? So it depends on the reason. For lower than expected performance, it may be reasonable to take no action. You remember when we're treating the quiz, so if the value doesn't make sense, so it's better for you to just not do anything. You can just leave it as it is, right? Then adjust factors that are external to the solution or reset expectations for the solution. So the next one is recommendation, still recommendation. Example of recommendation that a solution that a business analyst may make. One, do nothing. So this usually comes, when the value of a change is low relative to the effort required to make the change, or when the risk of change significantly outweigh the risk of remaining in the current state. It may also be impossible to make a change with the resources available or in the allotted time frame. So the next one is additional example of recommendations that a business analyst may make: organizational change. So back to the cultural issues, right? So a process and set of tools for managing attitude about perception of and participation in the change related to the solution. Possible recommendations that relate to organizational change include automating, which is what most people want to run away from because they want to keep their jobs. Improving access to information. So this is also still talking about information sharing. So if information is readily available to them, so they can easily use it to make any informed decisions that needs to be made. Okay, so still on recommendations. So additional example of recommendations that a business analyst may make is reduce complexity of interface. So interfaces needed, whenever work is transferred between systems or between people, sometimes it might actually be too busy. You just want a simple interface, easy to use. As part of our non-functional requirements, ease of use, security, scalability. We just want things to just be smooth and flow easily. So that might actually be part of the constraint that people are having, and they just feel like, okay, so this thing is just too busy. I think it's too complicated. Where I used to work in the Citibank, I remember a couple of my customers back then didn't like our online payment platform because it's not like a typical online banking platform. There are 3 different levels of security. You need to first of all install something on your computer before you come in, and then you use your token, and a lot of people were resisting that. So it was an issue. And for me, from the organizational standpoint, they were just trying to be proactive to secure the system to ensure that, things do not, there is difference between trying to please and trying to ensure you do the right thing. So, which was a tough sell, at that point. But the few ones that understood why, we're doing what we're doing. So people usually complain because of, rigidity, things are too complex. They just want something easy. But if something is too easy, then you are also opening the door for, for crime and, attacks and all of that. So the next one is eliminate redundancy. So different stakeholder groups may have common needs that can be met with a single solution, reducing the cost of implementation. Okay, avoid waste. The aim of avoiding waste is to completely remove those activities that do not add value and minimize those activities that do not contribute to the final product directly. So more recommendation. Identify additional capabilities. Solution options may offer capabilities to the organization above and beyond those identified in the requirements. Okay, I'm not going to read that one. And then the next one is retire the solution. So you consider to replace a solution or solution components. Technology has reached the end of its life. Services are being insourced and outsourced, or solution is not fulfilling the goals for which it was created. Some additional factors that may impact the decision regarding the replacement or retirement of a solution include ongoing cost versus the initial investment. So it is common for the existing solution to have increasing costs over time, while alternatives have a higher investment cost upfront but lower maintenance cost. I'll give you an example for that. So, you know, we are now in the cloud computing age, right? So many organizations are now trying to migrate their data into the cloud. So the ones that are not catching up will probably still be paying so much to keep their, you know, their server within, you know, the country or, you know, wherever they have. If it's an organization, it's a global organization that have presence in, let's say, maybe 200 countries. Each of those 200 countries, right, would have their server, you know, their system server, their network server sitting somewhere within that country. And then they need to power it on 24/7. They need to pay so much money, you know, to keep it going and all of that. Whereas the head office of that organization is sitting in New York. And then there is new product in town called the cloud computing. You know, why should we, you know, keep doing our things in silos? Why should each of, you know, individual countries still be maintaining their servers? And sometimes there might be power outage, disruptions everywhere and all of that. So they might need to try to do an analysis, you know, ongoing costs, how much, you know, they spend to run that server compared to moving to the cloud where everybody can access whatever they want to access, you know, within a particular location, and, you know, business keeps going on. So that's, you know, also a good example. And then the next one is the opportunity cost. So this represents the potential value that could be realized by pursuing alternative course of action. I'm sure we understand what opportunity cost is, right? So instead of doing this, maybe I would rather do that, right? So you just try to, you know, check the potential value that could be realized by pursuing an alternative. So instead of the cloud computing, maybe someone else from somewhere came up with another solution that is equally beneficial, but maybe not as beneficial as the first solution. Okay, so we also have retire the solution. So some additional factors that may impact the decision regarding the replacement or retirement of a solution include necessity. So it is necessary, you know, most solution components have a limited lifespan. So very soon, maybe we probably would not be saying network server anymore. So that means that is the end of that particular, you know, solution that was built several years ago, right? So it is now necessary for every organization to move to the cloud. So
yeah, another example is just like before we were on Windows 97, Windows 2000. Now there's Windows 2010, and some applications are no longer compatible.
Yes.
Yeah, with this new one. So it's just necessity that, you know, we retire that application.
Yes,
solution.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And also during this pandemic, at least we've seen it too, right? So work from home was a big deal. Now it became, all of a sudden, it just became necessary that everybody moved to that direction. So, so after a certain point in life cycle, it becomes impractical or impossible to maintain the existing company. So another example is this company WeWork, right? So WeWork used to have a co-location for different people to work together and all of that. And I heard they are already losing their shares and, you know, losing their share value. People are not patronizing them anymore. So many stores are closing down because they have tested work from home, you know, to be well effective. So now people are moving, you know, towards improving the security, you know, that comes with working from home, how they need to be tracking employee system and all of that. So that's an additional, you know, solution, maybe component or a new solution entirely, but it became necessary at some point. And, you know, they just need to weigh the two options. Okay, if our staffs, you know, keeps working from home, I think it saves us more costs than keeping them, and then we keep paying for rent, we keep paying to power up, we keep paying, you know, for different stuffs and all of that. So that's a good example. And then the next one is sunk costs. So this one describes the money and effort already committed to on an initiative. So this investment cannot be recovered. It is effectively irrelevant when considering future action. So decisions should be based on the future investment required and the future benefits that can be gained. So who can please give me an example of a sunk cost? Hello?
I can give you a non-project based one.
Okay.
So having a car that you've put a lot of money into, and then having to make a decision to, I put in $2,000 in this car last month, but it's still no longer working, and I need to get something else. I can't retrieve any of that money. It's all gone.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. So any other one?
Let me give an example of a building, cost of renovation.
Okay. Okay, Sharon, are you done?
Cost of renovation.
Okay, yeah, cost of renovation.
Yeah, I was thinking of procurement costs of some items that will no longer be required. You know, you do some spec check, you do some studies and all the rest, and at the end of the day, the project is cancelled.
Okay, yeah.
Just all over again. Or
Yeah.
maybe the regulation, you have to stop progressing the project.
Yeah, so it becomes a sunk cost. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
I just wanted to say, okay, there are sometimes you just like some organizations make this mistake of not doing a not proper analysis before acquiring a solution.
Yes.
Like a software that is so huge. I know they've invested so much money in this, and when they implement it, people refuse to use it. People just don't want to use it. You've tried everything at that point, try to maybe educate them, train people, but it's not just working. You realize that we have to abandon this project. So that's like you've sunk a lot of cost into it.
Makes sense. Okay, so let me give another example. Because of this pandemic, right? So there's been increase in virtual collaboration, amongst people. And then this organization has Microsoft Office Suite, right? But instead went ahead, to pursue, to purchase a new software called WebEx, owned by Cisco, or maybe they purchase Zoom, and then along the line they realize that the security feature on Zoom is actually not in compliance with their organizational standard, right? And that's just it, they can no longer move forward with that particular project. Rather, they now went back inwards to see how they can even increase the benefits that their current system, has in place. Like the Microsoft Office Suite now has Microsoft Teams, right? That their teams can actually use. Or let me say, maybe they went ahead to purchase an enterprise application for Slack, when they can as well use Microsoft Teams, to collaborate amongst themselves. So the money that they have spent to purchase Slack or to purchase WebEx or to purchase Zoom are now sunk costs, because it's not in compliance with what they really want to do or what they really want to achieve. Okay, so guidelines and tools, we have the business objectives again, we have the current state descriptions, and then we have the solution scope. So the techniques here that can be used to recommend actions to increase solution value is data mining. We have the solution, the decision analysis. We have the financial analysis. So this is financial analysis is actually very, very important, right? So you need to check your IRR, your NPVs, and all of that, because you need to present some financial data to be able to convince your sponsor that, okay, I don't think this makes sense again. We need to move with this and this and this and that. So it is very, very important that you are highly skilled at, calculating some of these financial analysis for you to be able to ensure that whatever data or whatever report you are giving to the sponsor, are fact-driven, evidence-based, for them to make a decision out of it.
So, Toyi, we have a question.
Okay.
Judy said, where was the governance? I don't get your question. Do you get the question, Toyi?
Let me read it.
It was just a comment that you mentioned that they went through the whole process of looking at all of the collaboration software.
Yeah.
And then they decided that going through all of this process that they couldn't use what they wanted to use. Where was the governance?
Judy, you're so funny. You know why I'm laughing? A lot of time, what we are saying in BABOK is a guideline, right? Put together by the International Institute of Business Analysis. Not
I'm also
every
saying that because
organization.
I've been involved in governance, and people go off and do all kinds of things. They have no idea what they're doing.
Exactly. Exactly.
What she just posted now happens in real life. Like,
A lot of time.
sometimes like CEOs go for meetings and they see one, okay, this company is using one software, they don't even do their own analysis, knowing that every company is unique. They'll just sign, check, and sign the contract and okay, come and install this application for us.
You will be surprised there. Even some organization, you see softwares, different kind of softwares, and you'll be like, they are not even doing some analysis just to even see. For instance, if you need a new software, the first thing you need to do is, like I said, enterprise limitation, and you need to do some assessment internally. Enterprise architecture. Do we currently have that solution in place? Or why is this division asking for this solution when department is currently using something similar? Maybe you just need to do an upgrade, for them to have the features that they need. So, like I said, different organizations, different, technical issues. So I think IIB has actually done a good job, bringing up this level of not awareness, this framework, for people that can guide people and guide organizations to be able to work more effectively, right? So hopefully, I trust that we're all going to do justice and help out our different organizations to achieve their overall strategic goals. Really, what is there, that's not how it is in real life. It's all over the place. It's it's all over the place.
I guess that's why it's called a framework, not a standard.
Yeah, it's a framework.
So that we all don't have to completely align to it.
No, we don't have to, but they are also best practices, right? So they have strategically, put all of these pieces together for you and I to be able to help our organizations, to be in a better shape. Yeah, they are frameworks.
Just to add here, in real life, you find out that a lot of organizations don't practice, what is stated in BABOK.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so but when you go in there now with your BABOK, framework, now you start seeing like there are a whole lot of things you need to do, so yeah.
So that's where the perception comes in, the culture.
Yes.
The culture shock. Who now come in and they will now start questioning and all of that. But it will take time. Like I said, it's a gradual process. But what I do is I have the soft copy, on my work computer. I have Excel, just align some of it. We just need to keep pushing it until they get to understand the benefit of why we are doing some of these analysis, why it is important to do this, and why it is important to do that. It is not all tax. Even BABOK mentioned it. Not everything is applicable, but it has become like a standard, like a form of a best practice, of how to do things better, to help our organizations to achieve their goals.
Okay. Myself. So as we're discussing this, I kept thinking, what could be the reason why such companies make such huge mistakes and commit so much funds and waste it? Is it that they don't have business analysts, on their team, or is it that they don't understand the need of having BAs on board?
Well,
going through my mind.
It also depends on the organizational modeling. So you might have some people at the high level that are decision makers. Who are you to say no? You understand? You are just an analyst, right? Remember, you are an analyst. You are not an executive director. So decisions come top down, not bottom up. Your job is just to guide them. That is even if they want to listen. But if you have a sponsor that brought you in, they brought you in for a project, not for the overall enterprise, not for, you are not as part of the strategic team. You understand? So it also depends. If you work in a strategy team, like a PMO office and all of that, maybe you can start, doing your meetings and start recommending some trends. But remember, as a business analyst, you probably probably have a need for a particular project, or they have a need to improve a particular project, not the whole organizational structure. They don't need a change, overall. So if you grow up the ladder, you become part of the decision maker or part of the board of directors and all of that. Maybe the skills of BA can now then, come to play in a better form, to say, okay, in overall, let's have a strategy session. How can we improve the organization and all of that? But like I said, baby steps. Once you get in, you are in as an analyst, you are not even a manager. So if the organization is project driven, like it's a projectized organization, so it depends on the matrix, right? So you might have a matrix organization where you will probably be reporting to a functional manager, or you might be reporting directly to a director. So it depends on how the structure is, put in place. So yes, they see us as magicians, but remember, it relates to the projects that you are working on, except if they have multiple projects and they need ideas, or you work with a committee, the steering committee, the office of the project management office, and the PMO office, right? So they too kind of have a say. But like Judy said, governance. So you have some governance team that assess some of these changes. So if we have PMP certified project managers here, they would understand, right? So when you have the change control board, any changes that needs to happen on a solution or on the particular project you are working on, it needs to go through a committee. So you can see that the level of decision making is even way beyond you. So you are just there, okay, I'm recommending. Like I said, you also need to always have your report, your analysis as a backup, because your decision, you are not just bringing it up from the sky, not just straight from your head. You need to have your evidence, your analysis, your backup. It must be fact driven. So whatever you are recommending, whatever solution you are putting, even when at the point of eliciting your requirements, remember all these different steps. So after you have planned your elicitation, you need to now do the elicitation itself, and then you now need to verify, then you now need to validate. You can see. So this is just to say you are not just coming up with something out from your head. You are following the right steps, following the proper guideline, because you don't want a situation that whereby tomorrow they'll say, oh no, she said this, she said no. I have evidence, right? This is the recording of the elicitation I had. This is what was confirmed. So you are just like, okay, I'm just we are working in the space of a supporting employee, not really a decision maker.
Yeah, just to add to this, what she asked in PMBOK, if you've gone through some of it, you find out that they stated it there that about 70% of projects failed as a result of poor requirements gathering.
Yep.
And it's just now that recently organizations have started, appreciating the role of a business analyst, Yeah, that's why business analysts are now coming in to like, okay, before you embark on it, yes, we need to analyze, we need to, see how it fits into the organization. And that is just to reduce the rate of failure of projects.
Yeah.
So some organizations still don't appreciate the role of a BA and the project manager. So that's what it means. Some people are still doing it their own.
Yeah, a lot of them actually, they still do the whole way. A whole lot of them. Yeah. A lot of them. So that is why IBA will still, continue to push, and then maybe with Cbap certified, all of us can still continue to, encourage, to be supportive of one another, to even help our organizations to make better decisions with our fact-driven evidence and, results. So I think it still boils down to, you know, us fighting. Like, if you are sure this is what you want to do, we just need to keep pushing and keep pushing. Okay. Sorry, it's not moving. Okay, so technique, we still have focus group discussion. We have the organizational modeling. We have the prioritization, process analysis, risk analysis and management, survey and questionnaires. And then our stakeholders, we have the customer, we have domain subject matter experts, we have end users, we have the regulators, we have sponsor. And our output is recommended actions. So any question? Any question?
So we've come to the end. Does anyone have any question to ask Tony?
Okay, I just wanted to ask, well, how did you study these guidelines on tools? Because to me, I think it's just many, you know. I'm trying to, I can remember the input and output, you know, but
what I did was,
and yeah, it's just a lot.
yeah, I just did a mind mapping, like I said at the
Okay.
beginning. So I put the task in the middle, then the knowledge area in the middle, put the task, and then I started doing the branches and all of that. So it's a lot. I don't think you want to cram anything. Just understand the flow, try to imagine yourself, you know, walking in that space at this point, and think of your project as a multi-million-dollar project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
no pressure.
No pressure.
I have a question. So
yeah.
the kind of questions that we'll be answering tomorrow.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm going to bring me back to what I said earlier before we started the session. So if you were here at the last session, which was on Friday night, there was a lady, Rita, who I said we were in the same study group together. We started reading at the same time, and she was just answering questions at the last session. So I was saying that she was on fire and all that. So she took her exam today, and she passed.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yes, it was. You know, we're all happy for her, and she wanted to come today. But I told her that I didn't want us to, you know, because by the time people start asking questions and she starts talking about how she passed and all that, it might take our time. So I told her we'll have a session tomorrow by 7 p.m. It might just be short, 30 minutes, short 30 minutes session unless there are so many questions, and then we can extend it to 1 hour. So I'm going to send out the invitation tomorrow morning to everyone. If I don't have your email address here, because I think 1 or 2 people, I don't have their email address, please send a mail to me so I can send the link to you. So that's it. So just have your questions ready. She's going to share her tips, especially for those that have exam this week. I know a few people here who have their exams slated for this week. So we've come to the end of the session today. Tony, you can stop sharing your screen now.
Okay.
Yes. I want to thank Tony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I have to do something for 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, so I have to drop off now and finish it before midnight.
All right, Judy.
It was really nice. It was really nice working with all of you. Thank you very much. Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
So, thank you, Tony. So I want all of us to follow her page, 3T Consulting on LinkedIn. Please go and follow her page. Tony, thank you very much. And thank you everyone who came tonight, who joined the session today. I wish you all God's grace, good luck in your exams. So see you all tomorrow. All right, good night.
Thank you so much for this session.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.